Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the special meeting of the Parks and Community Services Committee meeting on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today, Tom will not be joining us. He's traveling. So thank you all for being here. Our first item is a discussion about the community grant.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
We don't usually have to do.
Oh, you don't? Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Should we do that? I mean, do we need to?
Well, I just thought Trevor looked at me like we should, so I don't.
I noticed Betty raised her hand, so.
Oh.
Do you have something to say, Betty?
I just, it said I could be a panelist and I don't know if I need to be a panelist.
We'll
This is
just
all
leave-
new to me.
We'll just leave you right there, okay?
Okay,
Put your hand down now. There we go.
Okay, great. So let's start with our community grants. We received them all last week. Thank you, Sherry.
I think you're supposed to do public comment because it is a public meeting.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. Public comment. Does anybody have public comment? No, okay, thank you. Sorry, it just wasn't on the agenda, so I wasn't sure if we had to do that or not. So, okay. Okay, now let's talk about community grants. So thank you, Sherry. The way you sent them this time was fantastic. Easy to access them and look at them. Thank you very much. We have a lot this year. And hopefully, as you guys saw, the budget committee will approve our increase. And so we'll have 110,000 to give out instead of 90, which will be awesome.
So should we not have assumed that it's 110?
We should assume that, but the budget committee still has to approve it. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. So that is what we assume.
Okay, when will that happen?
They meet next week for the first time.
Okay, okay.
So would you guys like to go through each group? Do you want to do, if you just have questions, how would you like to handle it today?
This is the bulk of what we want to discuss today, right? I mean, I know there's another topic, but still, I'd kind of like to just touch on each one real quick, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
We're not voting yet. We're not trying to do anything, but if I understand correctly, talk about questions we might want to let them know so they can be prepared to speak to them.
Yeah, then Sherry can send them an email if we have specific questions that we didn't see in the applications.
Okay.
So. All right. So we'll start with the American Legion, post 168. They are asking for a heat pump and coffee maker.
If you haven't noticed, it was actually a total of $9,700 instead of $8,700.
Well, I wondered about that.
Yeah.
I got confused.
Yeah, it was a bit confused. Well, I think when I read the details, it wasn't confusing.
Right.
But I do think, I suggest that we amend their request amount to what I believe is what they intended, which was $9,700.
On the preliminary member worksheet.
Yes.
Yes, right.
Which, by the way, Sherry, I've already updated it.
Okay.
That's worksheet that I can provide to you once that's what you want me to do.
Perfect. I'll just make notes on the right now.
Okay.
Otherwise, I thought the request was complete as far as the requirements. Haven't actually made a request in quite some time.
It has been a while. And I know they noted on there that they couldn't get their hands on the past grant, but it was many, many years ago. So I think.
Oh, yeah, I made a note. It was in the fiscal year 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
And they received 2,800 at that time. So this request is quite a bit more. That though, I thought the request was very clear.
Great. Okay, any other?
Well, I just thought it was interesting that they want $1,000 coffee maker and I look like they spent $74 for coffee.
Well, they do that. They're doing the breakfasts again.
Yeah.
They've just recently started them up. Yeah.
That was just my, wow. Don't spend very much on coffee for wanting a Cadillac coffee maker.
Okay, great. So next on the list is Camp Kawanalong. They are requesting 1,500.
I thought it was really interesting that they were gonna, this was just part of the money they were raising, which I really appreciated. And 500 of it was gonna go to Cannon Beach kids, so I thought their request was very reasonable.
Right, anybody else have any thoughts or any questions to send on to Camp Kawanalong?
This is another one where they haven't made a request in several years. Last one I think was in 2021. Kind of, in my opinion, kind of technically, they were supposed to include profit and losses for the last 2 years, and they did not do that, as I recall. But I'm really hesitant to not accept their application on that basis, frankly. I think their request, as Jay says, is very reasonable. It's very focused on a specific need. It even is very obvious how it benefits this community because of the way they said they were going to utilize the money. And it feels to me like it's the kind of thing that we really do. I would like to see us be able to support. But I do think that they are missing one item that technically they should have included.
Oh, I do know, I think Lori, was one that assisted them in this application. So I can make that add our questions. I don't know,
Well,
because I do know that they were shut down for a little bit as well, so. maybe
That could be where COVID.
yeah, I feel like they were shut down with COVID quite.
Carryover from COVID was an issue.
Yeah. I did go to their website. It's a facility that I'm really not that familiar with, but I was quite impressed. Plus, they've got a huge building campaign going on that was pretty impressive. This is a fairly minor piece of, their ongoing operations. It's just for guess they still describe it as a boathouse, but they've got some big things going on. So there's no doubt in my mind that they do have an active organization, and we're not just throwing money into something that's going to disappear.
No, my kids went to Camp Kawanalong and they're in their 30s. It's been around for decades. And it's a great, great program.
Anyway, I would like to accept it as complete based on the merits. And yeah, I think it'd be very interesting to have them come in, but I don't have any specific questions on their grant.
Okay, are you all okay with that?
I just have a process question being new to the committee. I'd already indicated I wasn't going to vote this year. It's just that I'm observing the process and coming in so late. So I'll reserve that for next year. But is there a precedence to your point that if an application comes in incomplete, that there's an opportunity for them to fill in that missing information, or do they almost get immediately disqualified?
I like that question because last year we had to disqualify someone for not including something in their packet. But I would like to just talk about that. Like if they turn it in and we meet the next week and look and see if there's something missing, would we like to give them the opportunity to send it in instead of just automatically denying them?
I would like to see us come up with a way that's fair to all of the participants, all the grant requestees, to where we could take that first look and say, oh, you know what, they didn't provide something, and give them that one chance before we did the deadline. I think we need to be, I'd like to see us be able to do it. Right now, the problem is that individually, we can't reach out you know, it would all have to be funneled back through Sherry in the city in order to be, I think, true to the process. And I really don't want to put a lot of extra work on Sherry. In the past, Sherry, speaking of past admin, I think it was unrealistic to expect you to go in and actually check to make sure each one is complete. I do that as soon as I get my hands on the packet, but unfortunately the deadline is passed before I get the packet in order to check it for, you know, what I think is complete. And so, I don't know, I'd like to see us do better. I'd love to give them a chance. We'll talk about the History Center as, you know, as example that we could have had a problem there, which we didn't, but, you know, because there was a critical piece of the packet missing on the first distribution there.
Well, and if I may speak as an admin, but also as a grant writer, I think some of these packets blew me away of how they looked. And I know that we're looking at volunteers, but we all know when it comes to grant, the big money, they're asking, they need to have their stuff. I mean, I've been turned down for grants because I screwed up or missed a key request. When it comes to grant writing, you have to be on top of it.
Fair enough.
They're asking for big money.
Yeah.
And so,
Needs to be consistent.
it needs to be.
Right, exactly,
And that's it.
exactly.
To be fair, I looked at the application packet. There's very strict, like it needs to be in this order, it needs to be all on the same time. So I guess we're giving a guideline. If it's not on the guideline, then yes, I would say you didn't explain it correctly. You need to relook at that. But when you have specific instructions, they need to follow those instructions, because then the next person that did follow the instructions and didn't get the amount that they wanted, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that's always what comes up. It's not about assisting the one who, for whatever reason, didn't quite get it right. It's fair to everybody else who put all the effort in to, you know.
We all
Do it.
love to give them all money.
Yeah, that's-
Good causes.
Yeah.
Everybody's wonderful and we want to help them. So I guess that it's hard when you're dealing with your emotions versus technical.
Exactly.
Wasn't the reason we denied the applicant last year is because they were late in getting their whole,
No, they
They
just
just
didn't
had one
include
fee.
their budget.
okay.
Was it their profit?
Yeah, well, there were two last year that didn't get funded, you know.
Well, one didn't come to their grant presentation.
Show up to the presentation, and, you know, that was pretty straightforward. The other one, yeah, they included an attachment that I think, if I remember right, was supposed to be the line item budget for the request, but it was for the wrong organization.
Because he filled out 2 applications.
Yeah, and so it was one of those things that, you know, was noticed, I think, pretty early when we started our review process, but there's no mechanism to go back and say, look, you put this wrong thing in.
Mhm.
And maybe based on what Sherry's saying, that's the way it should be.
Well, that seems,
Clear in our request,
Yeah.
and we need to honor it.
well, that's, I think that some of the discussion last year was that, you know, everybody felt bad doing that, but we felt like we had to do it because you can't get yourself in a situation where you're forgiving somebody and then somebody else has
Yeah.
done all the work.
But, you know,
So, hmm.
I agree with what we're talking about, because I've written lots of grants too. And it's, you know, this is when you put on your big girl pants and you move forward. You have to look at that. And we're spending a lot of time making sure everybody is complying, and we shouldn't be having to do that. They should just, you know, especially most of these people have asked more than once, you know, so they know the drill. I mean, that sounds mean, but anyway, I feel like we need them to step up and make sure that what we ask for is presented, then we don't have to run around and try to get them to get it in at the last, after the due date.
All it would take is one denial. If somebody didn't have a complete application and you denied them, the following year, I think they would pay special attention to each step they have to go through.
Right.
And unfortunately, that sounds mean, but sometimes that's what's gotta happen.
Yeah.
I think before denying them, you do have the right to ask what happened, like COVID, if they don't have a profit and loss. Then you can make the exception. But other than that, I don't.
Yeah, well, and we're all volunteers too. We don't, probably not even as experienced as you are, Sherry. If you have history of actually writing grant requests, I've never written a grant request. I'm only trying to understand and follow a process and be fair about it. I'd like to have a little bit of wiggle room somehow. We already talked about one this morning that I thought, was missing. But I would love to not disallow their application.
Because what it says is if requesting general operating funds, or if it has been 3 years since your last community grants application was submitted, applicants must provide summary profit and loss statements or the equivalent for your past 2 complete fiscal years and a summary organizational budget for your current fiscal year. The last time they applied for a grant was, it's been more than 3 years.
Cause I have their originals in the envelopes.
Because the last time they applied was 2021.
So, I mean, according to the way my math worked, this would be the 4th year. There have been 3 empty years, so we had requested more information.
Well, thank you. As a new member, this discussion
Oh,
is
it's
helpful
good.
for me to understand too, so.
It's really helpful for us too, to,
This is to me, this is a very interesting process. I mean, it's very open-hearted. There's not a lot of rules about how individually you can feel and want to support each of these applicants. You kind of follow your own guidance, but it's still a very public process that has certain do's and don'ts. And those are the ones I always trip up on.
Well, I think I'd agree with you also is that if there's any leniency this year, that be applied consistently across the applicants. And being completely clear, I think the instructions are pretty clear.
Yeah.
But making sure that it's clear is that a response for every item requesting information is required, even if the response is, I don't have anything to include in here because it doesn't apply or something. But I think it's pretty clear in there for me reviewing it for the first time if I was going to submit something. If we feel that that there wants to be some understanding, if you will, for lack of a better term this year, that we apply that, or you apply that consistently. Also say as a new member, it was really helpful having that spreadsheet with the history. That thing went back 20 years, really helpful to see.
It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So.
Just perfect now, you can call us.
Thank you.
As my eyesight gets worse through text.
Right? Maybe we could just keep 10 years on. Yeah. So what do you guys want to do moving forward then with Camp Kawanalong?
Well, they did put in the part, it's going to be $1,000 toward a $9,000 project. And they did show us where the money was going to go. And they did say they're going to give a scholarship to Cannon Beach. So it's pretty clear that they're going to raise this money to build this project. I didn't feel like I was wondering what was going to happen with the money. And I was really pleased that they were only asking for a small amount to do this big project. So I tend to feel like I think they were thinking they were doing the right thing by just putting in the amount of money, the form that they did put in showing where the money was going to go. So I think we should accept it.
Then I think if we do that, then we need to have a procedure in place that moving forward, that's what we do, because technically their application isn't complete.
Yeah,
And it's really clear on the document that that needed to be included.
yeah, that's true.
Before you deem it incomplete, maybe an email asking.
I would like to be able to do that, you know, that if we could give them a chance to make it right, you know, maybe there's, you know, somehow it got lost in whatever other paperwork, or they had a change in staff,
It's
or,
my understanding this meeting is for if you guys have questions to go out to them before
Mhm.
you make that decision. So
right, so this would be the
I think
perfect.
it's an opportunity for you to say, hey, what happened to your profit and loss? And then I can forward that message back to the committee.
And then they would have a certain amount of time to get that information in before the next round type of thing.
Well, they'd have to have it to us by the time they present it
Right.
to us next
Right.
week.
I could even call them and ask them to send me information of what happened to their profit and loss. I mean, that'd be a way that would make you feel better, I think.
That's exactly what I would like to do, but we have a stated deadline that's passed.
Yeah, that's the
So
problem.
I'm worried about, you know, allowing them to submit missing material past the deadline. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
that's the whole gist of it. And that's what I want some way to handle differently if we can come up with something. Cause I would
Well,
love
you
to
know-
say, hey, you missed a piece. And give them an opportunity to send it in. But I mean, the deadline was very clear and it's passed.
So one of the things that I was thinking, some of the grants, people checked off in those boxes, they checked what they put in. And maybe we should say, make sure, double check that your checks, somehow tell them that they need to check it. And if they're checking it, it means that we are assuming they put it in there. And if we don't get it, then that's on them. But make sure they know that they have to, those things, check it off when you put it in, and then you know that it's right. Somehow that might help them. I don't know if that would help them or not.
Oh, I believe it would. And this particular grant request, they chose not to put that page into their packet.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the other ones that, you know, are historically really solid and complete always include that, and they always have them checked off. I mean, we provide the tool,
Yeah,
and in this case, it just wasn't used.
yeah, that's what I noticed. It was, some of them you can see, okay, they've checked it off, so now let me see if they did it, and they usually do if they check it off.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now, I don't know that our form actually requires them to fill that out if they fill out the form, because the bottom of that is where the signatures, you know, applicant signature goes. And so I think we kind of imply that we expect them to use that form, but I don't know that we really require it.
Well, what about a disclaimer that would say something along the lines that if your application is deemed incomplete or insufficient, that you run the risk of being denied or reduced funding type thing? Would that
Well, I
sort
mean,
of get them to, if you don't make sure that your application is complete, then you're running a risk.
But I think that's what it
I think
says.
we say that.
Incomplete applications will not be accepted.
but it's in bold red lettering at the bottom of, you know, page 1, incomplete or late applications will not, in all caps, be considered. And that's what we say.
We had one year, an organization thought the deadline was 5 PM and the deadline was 2. And they turned it in, I don't know, an hour late, and we didn't accept it.
Yeah.
So, because they didn't make the deadline. So,
Well, and then again, on the other hand, I mean, these money grant requests are not so enormous that
They're
I
easy.
feel like we need to, you know, be so militant on, you didn't cross that T, so you don't get your $1,000, you know, don't want to be that kind of a
Just have to be consistent. That's all.
Right.
Regardless of
Right,
$100 or $10,000. It all needs to be
right.
complete.
Yeah. So I guess maybe what I'm saying is I would like to maybe hope we could be a little more forgiving. Maybe give them a chance, once we go through from the deadline that, not to make it like, well, if you don't get it in, we'll let you know what we want. And so it encourages being, but I guess I might lean more towards giving them a chance to complete with the thought that there's a good reason why it wasn't,
Well, I would too. I'd like to have that ability to be able to make a pretty subjective decision, really, a gray area, rather than making it so totally black and white, yes, no. I mean, in my opinion, against just me, I think they've provided all the information I require to make a good decision based on their request. If they had asked for more complicated stuff, then I would feel differently. But in this
Yeah.
case, I know exactly what they want to do and I would be very comfortable moving forward with what they've submitted. I would still ask them to provide the rest of the stuff as a matter of form, but I feel like I know what they want, and that's my opinion. So I'd like the ability to make that recommendation to the group that we should accept this one and move forward.
But I think if we're going to accept this one and move forward, that we need to put a process in place
Yeah.
so that we're not violating our own request
I agree.
and that we be the same for everyone.
Mhm.
That we, like Trevor says, we've got to be consistent.
Take the emotions out of it.
Yep.
Act like you don't see who's the applicant, and
Yep. Yeah, because most people who give out grants say, if it's not in, you're done. We're not going
Yeah.
to accept it.
That's-
check,
that's
no.
true. That's true. I think that just putting that checklist somewhere close to where they sign their name, that they have to check, and then sign their name, it might help. It kind of right there where they sign their name, they're saying they did it. And so it gives them a chance to think about it.
Go ahead, Trevor.
I just think it's a great application. It's a great process. If people can't follow it, then
Yep.
that's just my city hat, Trevor. I mean, it's
No, and I think
pretty
that's-
simple.
I think that's the right.
What needs to be bold and what you need to pay attention to is clearly laid out in there. And if people don't choose to follow each step, sorry.
Try next year. And that's, the people that turned their application in late, they've had it in early since then and very complete.
Yeah, right. So I think that what I'm hearing is that we, as a group, recognize that the application from Camp Kiwanelong is not complete. And we're not going to move forward to consider them that basis, but that at the same time, we'll probably want to come up with some modification of our process for next year. Because we can't make a change in the middle of the stream this year. Is that what I'm hearing correctly? What I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So next is the Cannon Beach Arts Association. They are, does anybody have any, is there any discussion about their requests?
Well, their requests, on the other hand, they are asking for quite a bit of money. And they're saying they're going to use it on these different programs, but I might not have been able to understand what they are sending in as well as I should have, but I couldn't parse out what each, like the summer camp, the intern, the exhibition, all those things. I couldn't parse out what the money was going to go to. So I spent a long time on that grant. And I didn't get very far in figuring out where the money was going to go. So, but I'm not a financial person, so that's another problem.
Yeah. But did you feel like their application was complete?
Yes, but
Okay.
I felt like they needed to be more clear on, we need, like the Kiwanis said, $1,000 for blah, 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 blah. I think we need to know what they're going to use that, where they're going to put the money and see where else they're getting funding for those. I know the summer camp brings in tuition,
Right.
you know, so is that tuition covering their costs? And if it's not, why isn't it? So I had questions about that.
We can certainly ask them when they come next week.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. I thought it was complete. I had the same note. Their line item budget was a bit confusing to me. And so I would ask them to be able to discuss that when they come in. The other question, which isn't really something that I would ask them up front, but I noticed was that they are actually showing a positive on their P&L. You know, they actually had some money left over at the end of last year. And generally that's something that I look at for my own purposes, because it helps me, I think, understand the health of their operations. So I don't really see that as a question for them particularly, but I always look at P&Ls and see if they're spending more than they can spend or if they're, you know, managing their business. So, but I would ask them to explain that budget and how I'm supposed to understand that, because it didn't work for me either.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Next, we have the Cannon Beach History Center. And as you saw, we had part of it sent in our packet and then the other part we had sent later, but they all came in on time. Does anybody have any questions for the History Center? Did you all feel that the application was complete?
I felt it was complete and clear.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I was comfortable with what they submitted after we found the one missing piece. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Clatsop Casa?
Did we forget the chorus?
Yes.
El Centro Northwest. I mean, I'm just going down.
Yeah.
I just had it in.
So I moved, sorry, I put El Centro Northwest a little further down the list. Sorry. So Cannon Beach Chorus.
Okay. I felt that they sent in everything they needed and they were very, they told us where the money was going to go. And I feel like that from their evaluation from last year, they were able to attain their goals last year. It makes me happy because I know they had a hard time during COVID. So I thought their request was in line with what they are able to successfully, I don't know, process or create. What their creation is equal to the amount of money that they want to have us give them.
Okay.
They also have a concert this Sunday. I think at the,
Really?
I think so. I think it's this Sunday at
Know that?
the church. Thought I heard that.
I'll have to look it up, but no, I think they're complete and it was a very nice request.
Great.
Very supportive.
Okay, so El Centro Northwest. Sorry, I put it in different alphabetical order, sorry.
That's okay. Well, I had questions about this amount of money going for one event. It doesn't seem like they're trying to find other ways to fund fund it. And I don't know if that's my prerogative to question that, but that was what I was feeling.
Yeah, I'll tack on with Betty, I think, in that I'd like when they come in for them to explain to us again that more of the whole scope of their organization. This request was very specific to one event in Cannon Beach. And although it makes my eyebrows a little bit to see the amount of money, it didn't, I'm not questioning that, but that organization did a whole lot more for the Hispanic community based on what they told us last year.
Yeah.
Above and beyond what I think may be a very important event for, it is Hispanic Heritage Month celebration, but I think I need them to tell me more about the organization and not just the party. That's my opinion.
Okay. Great.
I don't know if it matters, but I did donate as the bank to their cause. And I really enjoyed the fact that they do support the Hispanic community with not just the celebration, but for financial stability. They were teaching people how to own homes. I really just want you to know how much more they do for the Hispanic communities. I mean, I know that they do the celebration, but they create some monthly meeting for them to come in with questions, concerns, things that help with their children. It's a great cause.
And I'm not trying to discount that, but I would like them to tell us a bit more about that part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But I did think it was complete. I would have liked to have seen last year's P&L. Because last year was the first year they had requested anything of us. And my understanding was it was kind of it was a new organization based on prior organization or pieces or however they built it together. And I'd really love to see how they're doing. That didn't come across in the application, but it really wasn't required. So it's what I would like to see. I think it's complete.
Okay. Thank you. North Coast Food Web.
Wow. Do we do CASA?
In a different order.
Sorry, I'm messing everything up. I took my notes and yes, let's do Class of CASA.
Okay.
I'm just mixing it all up today.
That's on our toes.
I think
Everybody feel like their application was complete?
complete. I think it's traditionally one of the better quality applications we get, if you will.
Yeah, they're very thorough.
And, frankly, from a personal standpoint, they're an organization that my wife and I support personally. I think it's a huge need and I want to see us do anything we can to support them.
Great.
Yeah.
Or anybody else? Okay. North Coast Food Web. Everybody feel like that was complete? Did I miss something else? Okay.
I'm just waiting to hear what Les has to say.
Why am I the only one who always saw?
Because
You're so thorough.
You're thorough and I
I'm
appreciate it.
thorough, almost
Appreciate that.
anally thorough sometimes.
Could never be too
I
thorough.
do believe their request is complete.
Mhm.
I continue to question how much good the South County gets for the investment with this organization. When they first came in, it was all about a food delivery service that was able to deliver food to homebound people who needed it. That didn't pan out. They shifted gears and I've had these conversations with them in past times. you know, they're now kind of embedded in that, or facility up in Portland that does, you know, Test Kitchen and a bunch of others for-profit stuff. And then they're trying to run a nonprofit piece out of it. It's always been confusing to me exactly where we fit, where they fit. I think they're trying to do a good thing. I'm not saying anything about that. Don't know. I just can't tell that spending the money and getting the same benefit from it. I mean, but I've always had a problem with their understanding exactly what they're providing. Every year it seems to be a little different.
Yeah, I agree with that. Last year it was confusing to me, and this year didn't get much clearer.
I mean, the only thing, maybe this is too much information, but the only thing I could really dig out is that they have an online food market that supports local farms, which I think is a good thing. But they don't have they have 400 customers annually, but only 15% of them are truly low income. So, and then the other thing they're doing is they're using money to buy food from these, I guess, same farms and putting them into boxes, and they're somehow being made available to people who have identified themselves as being food insecure. But there's nothing about, well, how do you have to go get them? Are they still trying to deliver them? I mean, there are questions that I would like to talk to them about in their presentation. But like I say, maybe I shouldn't be speaking this much about it, but I still wonder about this one.
Yeah, you can certainly ask those questions next.
Yeah, I think, you know, and that's the way I would approach it, is when they come in, I'd like to know more.
Okay,
Yeah,
anybody
me
else?
too. I agree with Les. I'm going to be listening to what they say about how they do certain things.
Okay, thank you. North Coastline Conservancy.
I think their request was complete.
Anybody else agree?
Yeah, this was one that I think Sherry kind of gave us a heads up that they did not actually have all of their paperwork that, well, I don't even know if I would go that far. You know, they were missing their evaluation for their most recent grant, which was back in 2017. But they did submit the one for the grant prior to that. So they did provide a data, and they included a note to the effect of exactly why they were in the position they were in.
I think it was their server. Didn't their server go down? Yeah.
And they couldn't retrieve all the old documents.
Again,
Right.
I feel like they were complete.
Okay. All right, thank you. Restoration House.
Looks to me like it was complete.
Betty?
Well, and this is not really, I guess they're asking 10,000. And my question is, just like Camp Guanalon, they are getting, our piece is a part of a bigger grant. And I feel like they're asking us to pay for the whole generator. And I would like to see them, and I don't know if this is our place, but I'd like to see them try to get funding from other sources also, just because we have so many people needing money. It's hard for us to provide for everyone. So when it comes to operational costs, maybe they could say, we need this and we have these different sources. But is that our purview, or, you know, I'm questioning that.
Well, I thought they applied to different cities for grants.
Well, this generator looked like, at least when I was looking at their financials, it looks like this was coming from us. This would be paid for by us. The bill was 9,000
Mhm.
something, and then it was the installation cost. It just matched exactly what they were asking for. So I don't know, is that part of the things we should be worrying about, or?
Well, I kind of like when they say specifically what the money is going to go for instead of just whatever administrative costs, I guess, which is fine too, but it helps me to know that they've earmarked the funds for a specific need. So,
I guess my feeling is if they're depending on us to get that generator, then if we don't give them the full amount, does that mean that, yeah, you know, is it gonna put a undue stress on the
right.
organization? So
I think we can certainly ask them that,
Yeah.
but I think their application is complete.
I do
Um,
too.
But we
Yeah.
can ask them that question when they come in front of us next week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is a legitimate question.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
My ask for when they come to talk to us is they've actually got a much bigger project going on. That I was trying to find the spot in their form, but they even referred to it at one point about it. They're still on track to be done by 2025. And if I remember right, last year, their funding had more to do with that bigger project.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is a very specific
Mhm.
need. And I would like to understand if this specific need for this generator will go away once the big project is complete, or
Mhm.
how it all fits together. But again, it's a question. I'm kind of with you, Anita. I like specific requests that are easy to understand.
Yeah, but I do agree with Betty that, you know, if we don't fund the entire generator, does that mean that they're kind of stuck?
Get it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
don't
that-
want to be put in that position.
I think that question was asked last year, of quite a few people, like if you don't get this funding, do you have other sources?
Mhm.
Didn't,
Yeah.
I think if I recall, that question was asked of several of them.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, thank you. Sea Turtles Forever is next on the list. Do you feel that application was complete?
I think somebody else should talk.
That's,
this is one that I'm still kind of wrestling with a little bit, but my initial sense is yes, it is complete.
Okay. Anybody else have thoughts? Okay. Seaside Hall. Anybody feel that was complete?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
All right. And no questions. They're usually very thorough and they make very specific requests for very specific needs.
Yes, and yes. And they always ask for a small amount, so
And they're always very appreciative.
Mhm.
that's right. Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Mhm.
The next one is South County Food Bank. And that was part of the Sunset Park and Recreation Foundation.
Yeah, see, I got confused on this.
Yeah, so I think they got maybe lumped together because they're two separate applications. As far as I could tell, they are both complete. But
Yes.
I
yes.
don't know how everybody else feels about that.
I think they were complete, and I was prepared for this confusion because of last year. But people looking at it for the first time might not have understood what was happening.
The same person fills out the application
Yes.
for both organizations.
Right.
And so I think that's how that happened.
Yeah.
I agree. I thought they were both complete and I don't have any specific
So it's,
questions on
they're
either.
requesting 3,000 for both.
So they're requesting 4,000 for the South County Food Bank and 3,000 for Sunset Park and Recreation Foundation.
Let's see, I don't have this on my worksheet.
I don't think it's on the worksheet.
How would I know where the 4,000?
Well, so
Go ahead, Les.
we'll get to, So as far as the worksheet goes, it simply wasn't there because when we got the packet in, we didn't recognize that there was a second request appended to the back. I have an updated worksheet ready to go where I've added that line in.
Okay,
And so with the group's permission, I'll send it to Sherry to send back out to us, but
Well, I wanna say this was probably more so an error that I made. They did bring it in with both. And I thought one was the evaluation and one was the application. I put them together and scanned them. So, cause technically, I'm not supposed to be digging and setting everything up. Les brought it to my attention that there were actually 2 applications. So, and they did come in on time. And we had everything. So they are both complete applications.
Okay.
I just.
all right.
well, I would not,
Wednesday.
I would not feel bad about it at all.
Nope.
This is.
No.
That's what-
We don't have lots of other things going on.
For you guys to know, it wasn't them, it was the way I scanned it in.
Well, that's one of the reasons we're here today too, so we can
Yeah.
make sure that we all understand everything in here and that we feel comfortable moving forward with each of these applications. So,
All right.
But the applications themselves were, I think, complete and clear.
so that's
Yeah.
South County Food Bank and the Sunset Park and Recreation Foundation. Okay,
Right,
great.
yeah.
Okay, then the Cannon Beach Academy.
I thought they got everything in that they needed to get in.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Next is the harbor. I feel
Yeah,
like-
hard.
I do believe it was complete. And, you know, they're one of our long-standing every year come in. But I do think they were complete. Although they didn't request anything last year, which
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
is a little bit too, I noticed in my notes, but they did apply the year before that and have been. As far as a request for them, I guess this request was for what I understood was a pretty new outreach of theirs called Astoria After School.
Mhm.
And it's completely unclear to me how that will benefit the South County. I'd like them to explain better. In the past, it's always been more about their crisis response teams and how they are able to go anywhere in the county when something happens at any time, day or night. And I know they still provide that, but that wasn't part of this request. So I need them to explain a little bit more to me.
And I also wanted to know if they have other funders for this project. Because I was thinking similar things to what Les was thinking. So are they just depending on us for this, or do they have other help for it? So.
Anything else? All righty, thank you very much. So next, Tolivon Art Colony. Do you guys feel like the application was complete? And do you have
Yes, I do.
Any questions
I-
for them?
I looked at their and their financial statements, and what I felt was they don't really ask for any grants. They don't go out and try to find any other grants. So they're depending on the salary for their director and financial. They're expecting that to just be paid. But they offer free programs. And I'm thinking, is that financially responsible to be asking for money to pay for your company, but not get money to make yourself solvent? So I don't know. I just felt like maybe they should be asking for some money for some of the things they do or get more grants. Because it seems easy for them to just ask us to pay for everything every year, and then they continue to go on. I don't know. I had questions about it.
But their application is complete.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay.
Yes.
Wildlife Center of the North Coast. Everybody feel their application was complete?
I did think they were complete.
Yeah.
And anybody have any questions that you'd like them to answer when they come next week? In particular? No?
Didn't have any particular questions. I think the tone of this request was. I don't want to call it, well, it wasn't like it was generic, but it was almost like it was. There wasn't a whole lot of what I thought was really. I don't have the right word, but it didn't feel like it was really speaking to me. It was kind of just more of a, came from a brochure that talked about the overall things that they were doing, which I guess is okay. But in the past, I felt like when they reached out to us, they were much more personal about it.
And more of a specific request.
Usually they at least highlighted specific things, even if the request itself was always just for general operating funds. But again, that was just my sense. I think it's complete.
All right. Anything else for the grants?
So can I
Okay.
ask a question? Can I ask one more question? Is Tom going to be part of the decision-making on the grants, or is he not doing it this year?
He's just out of town this week. So yes, as far as I know, he's going to be a part of this. He hasn't said
Okay.
differently, and he can always listen to this meeting and certainly ask any of us if he has any questions.
Okay,
And
I just
Mark, you-
wondered because otherwise it'll just be the four of us, right, deciding.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay,
And again, deciding what recommendation to make, yeah.
Yeah.
right.
It's not our final call.
And then Mark, when you have questions, reach out to me or to any of us and we can certainly, and to Sherry or Trevor too, and we can
Okay, thank you.
try and,
Yeah.
because it's kind of a big process.
It is, yeah.
Mhm.
So I'll miss a couple of next steps. I'll make sure to go back and watch the videos so I can see a complete picture.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, at least from a watching the process and raising your hand when something doesn't look right, that's very helpful because I think we're a little bit too embedded in it sometimes to
Will do.
see that.
So I do have two questions before I move forward, just to make sure that I'm understanding what the committee's wanting. Do you need me to ask the American Legion to amend the ask amount?
No, it's clear in there.
Clear?
Mhm. Yeah, they just asked separately. They asked one thing for 8,700 and one for 1,000.
So I don't need to reach out. And then Camp Quanalong, that is not a complete package.
I'm afraid we're gonna have to go that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I have a question for the group or for you, Stacy, and the group. So I have taken the two combined requests that came from South County Food Bank and the Sunset Parks and Recreation and just split the PDF in two. And then I have updated the evaluation spreadsheet to include the added a line for the South County Food Bank and corrected the amount request for the one you just mentioned, the American Legion.
Okay.
I am willing to send those to Sherry to redistribute if that's appropriate.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
And
nice.
okay, then I'll send those to you right after the meeting. Okay.
Thanks, Les.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so for 12 days, I just wanted to briefly thank everybody. I have a list, but I'll just briefly thank everybody for helping, for participating, for making it a a really great event. It was, I think, bigger than we've ever had. And I think people really enjoyed it. So, so thanks to everybody who participated. And it was fun this year too, to have some partnering with the Friends of Haystack Rock and the Cannon Beach History Center. And then the use of the Tolavana Art Colony building, just to kind of make it a little, I don't know, to include lots more people and more organizations. I really thought that worked out great. So thanks to everybody for all the time and planning and, anyway, thanks. Thank you. It was fun.
It was fun.
It was tiring, but it was fun. So the one thing I wanted to go over today really briefly is to talk about the handbook. As we know, this event's been going on for a lot of years, but it's pretty new as a city event. It was taken on in 2020 by the city instead of by a group of the community. So since this was the most well-attended 12 days, we learn more every year we do it. So I think there are a few changes we need to make to the handbook and the procedures that would be helpful. I've spoken to Betty and Les, and we would love to take a stab at a rewrite or a few changes to the handbook, and then bring it back to the committee, take it to staff. The city attorney will want to take a look at it just to make sure that it's really clear, and that as we move forward with it, that it's clear to whoever is on the Parks Committee, like, this is what happens at the street fair. This is what happens with the parade. This is what happens with, the process, so everybody can understand it as we move forward. So if any of you have any suggestions, anything that you noticed this year that we need to update or make more clear, that'd be awesome. I'll just give you a couple examples. So one thing we noticed this year was people turning their applications for the street fair late. And so I think we should set a date. We should set like a week before the event or 2 weeks before the event. We really should have the applications in place so they can be processed and we can make sure we have everything necessary for the event. I know Betty and Sherry have been working on streamlining the application process so that people don't have to resubmit. Well, they have to resubmit, but they don't have to resubmit the entire application, but maybe just re-sign it and redate it. We talked about taping off the street and putting names where the booths are.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, well, where are we supposed to be? What now, was ours here or is ours there? Kind of make it a little more clear the day of the event, so the process flows really smoothly. We also eventually would like to have the updated handbook on the city website. So that would, if people go on to the 12 days page, the handbook will be there and they can see what it is. We thought about maybe having some guidelines and job descriptions as well as the handbook. So just so that it's a clear process for everybody. So if you guys are okay with that, we'll work on that. And each time we have we'll bring it to the committee for discussion. And we can all understand the process.
Can I add a few things?
I'd love it.
I noticed this year, great event, but one of the things that I'll be looking for is, I think this is a great handbook. It's very easy to read and consume. But one thing we gotta be careful with is who's getting these applications to attend the street fair? That needs to come from the committee itself. It can't come from an outside person. It's gotta come, they gotta get an invite from the committee
Right.
itself.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I wanna focus on.
Yep.
As we get bigger and bigger, more and more people are gonna want to attend this event. And with it being a city function, sponsored function, we really have to pay attention to our mission statement in our handbook. And that everybody that wants to attend this and gets an invite has that in mind.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Have other things too, Trevor, as we.
Oh, just I think we gotta clean it up, this with the speaker events. when we have speaking events that the city is gonna have to see some kind of overview of what they're gonna be talking about, so the city can evaluate
Mhm.
that to make sure it's in line with the mission statement. That's all I got right now.
Okay. Any-
But I think it's a really good handbook, but it just needs to be tweaked.
Yeah.
As we grow bigger and bigger, we just want to make sure that everyone's treated fairly
Mhm.
and consistent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other
Well, I have-
thoughts?
I have a couple more suggestions, but I thought we were running out of time. Are we okay to continue just a few more minutes?
You okay
Okay.
with that? Yeah.
One of the things I would like to do is relook at the COVID, in the handbook, it mentions COVID waiver. I think we should add the thing if it's applicable, because it says they have to fill that out.
Yeah, I think
And-
we should just take that out.
Okay, all right. And then I was gonna say, let's add a due date for the when the booth when the invitations come back. You already said that, Stacy.
Mhm, mhm.
But I'd also when we put out a street fair, when the booth people tell us what they're gonna do, I'd like to see if they're gonna do a hands-on activity, because I'd like to plan for that if they are going to, or I think we need to plan for that if they are going to do it. Which it's nice to know who's going to be doing hands-on things. And the other one, I would like to see after the event that we send out the booths, the organizations an evaluation form, and just see what they think would have been made their experience better.
Yeah,
and
that's a good
some
idea.
feedback.
Mhm.
So those are the things that I was thinking would help the process.
I think, Jan, you mentioned that too, that you have a couple of suggestions, having had a booth of things we could do for next year.
I'll bring, so.
Yeah.
That sounds
So-
great.
So any other suggestions or thoughts? Again, it was a great event. The weather held almost for the whole event, for a little bit on the street fair, had a little trouble. But the tree planting was excellent.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Tree City USA was amazing, bigger turnout than we've ever had at any of those events. And
Yeah.
anyway, it was just really, really great. So thanks to all of you for all the work.
Did I send out a thank you card for the participants? Okay.
One of the things, I think Betty was there too, but we thought about how maybe because of the hands-on activities to get the kids involved in the parade. So trying to determine the timeline so that, if kids are making something like they had their nature crowns, that we could say, if you want to be in the parade with your beautiful crown, or somehow to get more people in the parade. I don't know if that's a goal at
Mhm.
all, but more participation.
So we could
But-
change the
but it-
time of the
it would
parade.
mean changing the time, but then I don't know if that, given what happened with the weather,
There would have been no parade.
right, so that was just something that we kind of touched on, just seeing how happy the kids were, and just, it would have been fun to be able to say, go join the parade, and but it would just mean changing the time somehow, so.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
A quick thing on that, we did one year have face painting,
Mhm.
and we could have a booth at the place where they meet for the parade, so that they could do that before. the
Oh,
parade
okay.
starts.
Right,
And then the people who do the crowns and the face painting could come to a table at the street fair
Okay.
when their parade is done.
okay, that
We
sounds,
did it that way one year.
Okay.
I think Jean Williams did the face painting, didn't she?
yeah.
Yep.
Libby, I think Libby has.
Libby, yeah, that was at the Legion, I think, wasn't it?
That way the kids would get into the parade and
Mhm.
have all their little faces.
Okay,
It's great. We'll send those
Great.
suggestions
Yeah.
as and we'll obviously bring it here and we can have a discussion about what it's going to look like for next year. We might as well start now.
right.
One of the things, somebody mentioned to me about the parade, they mentioned that there was cars coming right behind the participants, and they were
Mm.
wondering if we could close the street just for that 20-minute or 40-minute, 30-minute period and let people use Spruce Street.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, that
I
would
don't
be,
know.
I'm not a fan of that, but just because closing down a section of Hemlock, that opens up a can of worms with business owners not
right.
happy
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
down the Hemlock Street. So I'd like to continue doing it the way we're doing it, which is, I know you're in between cars, but the police department is there. That's my opinion.
What about the way we did it for the kids, the tree planting where there was a police car could be behind the parade and one in front so that,
It just depends on how many officers are on duty during that event, but I can definitely request that next year.
Mhm.
okay. That would probably solve it.
Mhm.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Thank you.
We'll see you